here I am. Maybe I've memorized it, maybe I haven't, but before I get into my topic tonight, I really want to lay some ground rules. Tonight during my presentation, make sure that you have an open mind, you have an open heart, and also, please, this is so important, please laugh at all the horrible jokes and puns I'm going to make, or I'll run off stage cry. So tonight I'm going to be giving my TIE talk. It's true, I will run back there, run on home. Tonight I'll be giving my TIE talk entitled Be a Man. Originally I wanted to do a 15-minute Beyonce choreography, but they said no to that, do a speech instead, so I was like, sure, why not? So, a little bit about me. This is just personal family friend, you know, the usual, but that is my name. I am majoring in international relations and economics with a minor in Spanish. I'm a senior this year, graduating in May. I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama. Anybody from Montgomery? No, there's nothing there. My family now lives in Wetumpka, Alabama, which is a really small town about 20 minutes south of Montgomery, where coincidentally the mayor is also the town barber, so that's a fun fact. Past 2 summers I've interned in Washington, D.C. This most recent summer at the Broadcasting Board of Governors. I really want to go into international affairs and social development, especially when it comes to Latin America and other regions in the Americas. On campus, I am the president for the International Relations Club. I'm a resident advisor in Ridgecrest East, and I'm also part of the Serbia Fellowship Experience. So, if you know about the world or housing, just let me know. And following in Jacqueline's footsteps, here's my Instagram. So, give me a follow. I'll follow you back. We'll have a good friendship going. So, another fun fact is that today is my mother's birthday. So, happy birthday to my mom. Thank you, Mom, for deciding to go to a football game instead of this. It's fine, you know. I'll definitely get another one of these. Who knows? It's not a one-time thing at all. But as you can see, this is a photo of my mom. This is one of my younger siblings. Obviously, not the one that plays football yet. I do have 2 other brothers and a sister as well. Sometimes it's hard to wrangle us all in one single photo. But you know, my mom and I, we've always been really close ever since I was a young kid. And I remember in middle school, every Wednesday night, we had a tradition where after doing my homework, having dinner, all my siblings went to bed, we would sit down on the couch, get a bag of popcorn, and watch, of course, every teenage boy's favorite show, Project Runway. So, this is a tradition with my mom, not only to catch up on how our weeks were going, but also to make fun of what was going down the runway and try to figure out what Heidi Klum was saying. And so, you know, I didn't think much about watching this show until one day at school, I was telling my friends at lunch who had gotten eliminated. They didn't know who the names were. And they kind of gave me that look. There's just, like, really silent look. There's like, did you just say Project Runway? And I'm like, yes I did. And so one of my friends, he was just like, oh, well, like, why are you watching that show? It's for girls. Like, you need to be a man and watch some sports or something. So after first advising him to actually watch it so he could maybe dress himself better, I really started thinking, you know, he said the phrase, be a man. What does that mean? How many of you have heard that phrase used before? Be a man. How many of you have heard it? Alright, so whether it's been used against you, or it's been used in relation to another person, or you've heard it in media, you've heard it to some extent. So I really wanted to know what that meant. And so obviously this term was made popular by Mulan. Not exactly, but this phrase, be a man, actually dates back to biblical times when the king of Israel told his son that he needed to be stronger and to, quote, be a man. And we can see that since then, millennia later, we've really stuck it within society, especially when it comes to media. So now, you know, we have pieces of literature such as the Odyssey or Beowulf, where we perpetuate this idea of what it means to be a man. But then that really begs the question of what are we saying with this phrase? And that really links to the idea of what it means to be masculine. So looking at some definitions, masculine is defined as having the qualities distinctive of or appropriate of a male. Now, this might seem very self-explanatory at first, but then you have to question, what are these qualities? You know, what attributes do we assign to men that make them masculine in nature? And this goes into the definition of masculinity itself. Attributes, behaviors, and roles generally associated with boys and men that are a combination of socially defined and biological factors. Now, what's really important to look at is the fact that we're looking at socially defined and biological factors, the ones we are born with and the ones that we learn as we go through our lives. And so when you look up masculinity, you want to know what some of these traits are. Common ones are courage, assertiveness, and independence. And I think we can all agree that These are three terms that we hear a lot in society, especially in the United States. You have to have these qualities to be a good person, to be successful in life. Now, this actually falls into the idea of Western perceptions of what masculinity is, which goes into the gender binary. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, why didn't you put the picture of the restroom signs up here? He's going insane. No, I'm not. This is called the gender binary, and essentially what it is it's a system where we have either you're this or you're this. You're male or you're female. You're masculine or you're feminine. And we see that this is perpetuated within our society from the time that we were born. We are always given that either-or option, especially when it comes to sex and gender identity. Now, while this can be true and it can be a good organizational tool at times, many people that rather than see it as a binary such as this, we should instead see it as this. Now, what this diagram interprets is the fact that there is no right or wrong. There is no yes or no. Our gender identity and our sex is fluid. And this actually ties into the idea of intersectionality, the fact that in your identity there are different components of yourself that all go together and at times are clashing. This one aspect of your life may make you privileged in one sense, and another will make you disenfranchised. So, looking at this breakaway from the gender binary, we see that across different cultures from around the world, we have different examples. So, the first, this is a picture from Brazil, and in Brazil, rather than having the gender binary system of male or female, it's actually deemed as male or not male, giving a lot more fluidity, but also setting up a power structure where men and the male race, or male species, is perceived as being superior. Next, you have Thailand. Now, this is actually a picture from a pageant, and my pronunciation is probably horrible, but this is actually a pageant for Kapoys, which is essentially a third gender, also used for people that are transgender women. So you see here that in Thailand, we're breaking away from our binary system and actually incorporating the idea of a third gender, both physically and mentally and spiritually as well. And finally, you have the example of the Yoruba people. Now, they are mainly based in Nigeria now. They spread all across the African continent. But this society actually did not have a gender binary system in place until European colonization. When colonists came into this region, they decided to put into place the male-female dynamic as to assert a power structure and to maintain dominance over other groups. And so we've seen now that we have examples of different interpretations of masculinity and gender identity across different countries, but we also have it in certain subcultures as well. Now I'm going to focus on the LGBT community. We've seen that commonly people use masculinity as a dichotomy between homosexuality and heterosexuality. All characteristics that are deemed non-masculine are automatically ascribed to those who identify their sexual orientation as being gay. This means that we set up a power complex where people who do not ascribe to the certain ideals of manhood are not only told what their role is in society, but we also try to dictate what their sexual orientation is expected to be. Now, this has been popularized by the phrase, "you're so gay." I know that we've all heard this before. This is not used to actually describe somebody whose sexual orientation aligns with that, but more so it's used to degrade people and other things. We use it in a negative sense to where if you are not fitting society's social norms, you are therefore a grade below that and you're going to be judged and discriminated against for that. Now, you can see the issues within the LGBT community in pop culture. Now, how many of us have seen Modern Family? Show of hands. Okay, so a good amount of people. Now, everybody's pretty familiar with Cam and Mitchell, same-sex couple dynamic, but you see in the show, never are they just two men. They are always described as one being the wife, one being the husband, one being the mother, one being the father. Because society has a tendency, due to the antiquated ideas that we have about social norms, that rather than break away from this binary system, we always have to describe the either or the or. And this relates into another idea. The fact that men are commonly afraid to exhibit these attributes that are commonly associated with being homosexual because they're afraid they're going to be stereotyped in that manner. Now, there's nothing wrong with being gay at all, but what is wrong is the fact that we are telling people how their sexual orientation is to dictate their personality and how it does that vice versa. We're telling men that they can't have emotions or they can't express interest in certain fields or else being risked being judged in society and prescribed to a certain box. Now, we see that there are a lot of problems within society about these strict definitions. The American Psychological Association has found that within recent decades, rather than see a decreased objectification of women in society, we've seen an increased objectification of both sexes. And these directly correlate in the physical harms for men. It's estimated that 1 in 6 people who suffer from an eating disorder, including bulimia or anorexia, is now a male, and this is on the rise. This is largely because an issue that we've traditionally seen as only affecting women is now affecting men at an increasing rate because of society's push as to what beauty standards are, how you're supposed to look if you want to embody that macho man aesthetic. We also see that men take 134.5 million fewer doctor's visits annually, which leads into the fact that men are 4 times more likely here in the United States to contract some form of heart disease, which is the leading cause of death amongst all adults in the United States. Because men are taught that they have to act a certain way and embody certain characteristics, they're engaging in riskier activities such as binge drinking, drinking and driving, and also participating in drug use. Now, how many of you are familiar with this commercial? Anybody at all? Okay. So this is part of DirecTV's Brilliant campaign, where they have decided to pitch with different celebrities how you need the basic cable, or how you need DirecTV cable. I don't know how it works. It doesn't work on this university, so I'm not buying into it. So this specific commercial, Peyton Manning walks out in a football store. Sorry, for what team? I don't know, because I don't know sports. But anyways, he walks out and says, "Hi, I'm Peyton Manning, and I have DirecTV." Another version of Peyton Manning walks out with a noticeably higher voice. He says, "Hi, I'm higher voice Peyton Manning, and I have basic cable." So while this commercial on the surface level has a funny characteristic to it, the fact is you have to read into what ideas it's saying. It's saying that because the higher pitched one has the higher pitched voice, he is no longer as masculine. It's connotating it as having a higher voice as a man as being a negative thing that you want to stray away from. Now, as you have all clearly noticed, I myself have a very high voice, dictated by something that I'm not able to control. It's a biological factor that I have no control over at all. Yet I already know that going into the workforce, I'm always going to have to do better in presenting and knowing my information and doing my job, because something as simple as having a higher voice will never gain me the same respect as somebody who has a deeper voice than me. I will never have the same level of attention in a room when I lead a meeting as a man with a deep voice because of the perceived societal connotations that we have today. Now, we also look at some other psychological issues we have. The first being reinforced gender roles within society. Now, we know that a lot in media nowadays, women are objectified to an alarming rate. In this presentation, while I do understand that, focusing on what it means to be a woman, having those rights, that is important. I'm focusing on masculinity in this context because not only does it affect me on a personal level, but it's also something that we stray away from discussing. So not only are we reinforcing gender roles within society, we also are giving people distorted expectations of what to be in the future. When you tell a young boy to be a man, you're automatically telling him that if he falls into this category, he will lose his masculinity. He has to prescribe to a certain identity in order to match society's expectations of him in the future, which leads to harm to younger generations that we cannot repair once it's been done. Only through active actions in our earlier stages of life can we actually stray away from these psychological issues that develop in the future. So, let's look at Alabama here. How do we define masculinity on this campus? Does it mean being in a fraternity? Does it mean enjoying and going to sports? Or does it mean having a day to events? So when we look for this answer of how do we describe masculinity on this campus, or in this state alone, what are we going to use to describe what it means to be a man? The answer is, we don't know. And the reason that we don't know is because there's no right answer. There is no one right way to describe masculinity, which leads into what I want you to take away from tonight's discussion. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Dove campaign, Like a Girl, which last year was featured, had a lot of different applause from a lot of different organizations. Essentially what it did was it took a whole bunch of people, younger generations and older generations, and it asked them to throw a ball like a girl, or run like a girl. Now, you saw within older generations that they did everything in kind of a silly and flimsy manner. The people weren't running very well, they couldn't throw the ball, but when you asked younger generations, and especially young girls, to do these same things, they did not hesitate to show that they had the capability of running as fast as they could. They had that strength to throw the ball as best as they could. That's because these younger generations have not been affected by what society expects of them yet. They have not been impacted by the norms that we have within society. So going forward, what can we do? First of all, don't constrain yourself to the binary system. We all like organization within our lives. It's a human characteristic. But the fact is, once we confine ourselves to this either or, we're ignoring others. We're not looking at the other perspectives that we have in society. Which leads into the fact you need to challenge the social norms that you have in front of you. The next time you're watching an episode of Modern Family, or you're watching a commercial on television, read into what they're saying. What are they saying not only about your gender identity, but the gender identity of others? And finally, be you. I know that is the most cliche thing I could have had, I hate that phrase, but honestly, in this moment, it's the most accurate advice that I can give you. Only by being your authentic self are you going to be fulfilled in your life. If you break away from what society expects of you and you follow your own route, that is what's going to make you truly happy in life. So the next time somebody tries to define your masculinity, instead choose to define yourself. Thank you.